Final Fantasy XVI is the first Final Fantasy game that I fully dived into and really had a lot of interest in. I've played Final Fantasy X years ago, way back in the day. I say years ago, way back in the day. It was like 3 years ago. I played it for about 10 to 15 hours, and the turn-based combat in the game, like, I know it's a good game. It's one of the most highly regarded games of all time with Final Fantasy VII. I just got a little tired of it. But when I saw Final Fantasy XVI, I was very intrigued by it because it looked a lot more actiony, more hack and slash like a Bayonetta game, which I enjoyed. I've played Bayonetta 1 through 3. So Final Fantasy XVI caught my eye. And I want to do a review style video talking about Final Fantasy because I've been able to play the game for about 6 hours now. I haven't beat the game, but let's just talk about Final Fantasy as a whole and how this is one of the best games of the year. Now, I played the Final Fantasy XVI demo a week before it released, and I was hooked immediately. Granted, it was 70% cinematic and 30% gameplay, which usually would not be my type of game to play nor stream because I streamed it on Twitch, twitch.tv/Burr if you want to watch live. Stream about every single day. But the cinematics were so good, and I was left on a cliffhanger from that 2-hour demo, and I just wanted to play more. And my god, when it finally came, oh my god, what a great experience. And I feel the story is the most important part in Final Fantasy. There's a lot of lore, and I'm gonna admit I don't know the lore of Final Fantasy or anything like that because I've never played it, as you heard me say earlier. But I feel like I'm watching a movie when I play this game with a little bit of combat here and there, and the combat's still very well done. Seeing such masterfully executed cinematic pieces in a video game like this, it's insane. I'm playing on performance mode on the PlayStation 5, of course, and I'm not sure if that changes the cinematics at all. All the cinematics that get showcased before a chapter, during a chapter, after a chapter, they're all so good, and they just hook you into the story. They hook me personally into the story. This story is probably one of the best story games that I've played in like years. I don't play too many story games, but probably one of the best ones I've played recently was probably God of War. And even then, I think the 2018 God of War is better than Ragnarok. But Final Fantasy 16, the thing that enhances it the most for me is the in-fight cinematics. You're in the middle of a fight, and then you get thrown with a quick time event, which I'm not the best at, and I'm not the biggest fan, but they're very simple in this game. And then you just get this masterfully made cinematic, and it's mesmerizing to see. It's beautiful, really. Now, the cinematics can lead into another discussion, which is the characters as a whole. And the characters, I feel, are very lovable characters in this game. Personally, my favorite so far is probably Sid. I've only played for about 6 hours, so I've met probably like 10 characters total. The demo introduced a few characters, and now you get to see them grow up because the demo's 13 years before where the game starts after the demo. So you get to see Clive grow up and grow the mark on his face that renders him like an Imperial. And honestly, all the characters, the voice acting, all of it is so well done, and it's just so exciting to see. All the characters I think are pretty lovable, and I don't really know much about all of them besides Clive because he's the main character. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about the past of like Sid and whatnot as the story progresses, and that's fine. But the characters can lead into another discussion, which is the audio design. The audio design is top-notch. Obviously, the voice acting is fantastic. I'm listening to it in English personally. I don't know if like you listen in Japanese or Korean or whatever you listen to it. For me, English is just fine. The sound design as a whole after that, though, is even more top-notch. The background music when you're in combat, it sounds like orchestra music. It complements the battle and enhances it so much, bringing you into that moment so much more. It just elevates the fighting experience to an even higher level. All the small sound effects are nice and well balanced, from hitting the dogs in combat to picking up random items and using potions. It all is just so well done. But the biggest thing in this game for me personally, besides the story, I know story is very important to a lot of Final Fantasy fans, but the biggest thing for me is gameplay. The gameplay is absolutely addicting. At first, you don't really have a lot of moves, and it could get a little tedious because you only have like 7 moves total, it seems like, with your combos. But that doesn't get tedious at all. All the combat is so satisfying to do, which I'm really impressed about. And whenever you finish combat against a bunch of enemies, you level up as well. And when you level up, everything just levels up automatically. You don't need to worry about applying skill points to anything or anything stupid like that. You don't have to decide which kind of build you want to go for, which isn't a bad thing to say. You know, games like Elden Ring, obviously, you have a build you want to decide. But for a game like this, it's just nice. Everything just gets done for you. You can just have fun. You can craft weapons up that make you stronger, have better defense. You can have those crafting materials if you want to do it. And then you obviously should buy more weapons from stores in your little hub worlds. And then outside of the stores in the hub world to get better weapon and armor, you can unlock new abilities from all the summons that you're going to find. I'm just learning about the summons. Right now, I have 2 summons. I was able to get the first one. They all seem to have different types of abilities, which I think is nice because it'll make the combat less tedious. I imagine if I do the exact same 7 moves for 30 hours, it will eventually get very tedious compared to doing it for 5 hours. But 6 hours in, the main thing I'm concerned about right now is the side quests, because right now I've done 2 side quests total, and that was in the beginning of the game. And they were so simple. They took me 2 minutes to do. I'm sure it was just like a tutorial to make sure you know what a side quest is and where to find one. But if the game goes on further and the side quests stay that simple, that's going to be a giant negative to me. Like, granted, they still give you items and all of that, but it's such a negative thing. I think that the side quests are too easy. It's like, what's the point of doing them? I'd rather just get gills from fighting a bunch of enemies and then just buy new items instead of getting gills from doing side quests. And I've talked about fighting enemies and how fluid it is. I think it's fantastic. I'm not bored of it at all. But there's one other thing, and that's the summon fights. I think they're called dominant fights in this game. I'm not going to spoil too much. I've only done one of them. If you're watching this, this is what you're going to get to as well. But the dominant fight was so much fun. It felt so much more fluid compared to Bayonetta 3. If you have never played Bayonetta 3, Bayonetta's hair is her weapon, and she can summon monsters with it, basically, in Bayonetta 3. And in the game, you do fights against other monsters with your hair. And you, like, control the monsters. They have, like, fireballs and whatnot. And in Final Fantasy XVI, I did one of those, and I was thinking Bayonetta 3 all day long. This is just like Bayonetta 3. Except, Bayonetta 3 fights were not that good, in my opinion. I didn't have a lot of fun with those fights. I think Bayonetta is a great game series. I like the hack and slash. I like her ass. I mean, cut that out. Now, Bayonetta 3 is a great game series. Great story, great characters, great combat. It's like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 for me. Like, Bayonetta 3, it was fun. But those monster fights were not fun. They were more tedious, and they just felt janky and unresponsive. Now, Final Fantasy XVI, you had one of these fights in the demo, kind of. I didn't really pay much attention to that one. If that one felt a little janky. So going into this next one in the actual story, that's not the demo, I was a little cautious after Bayonetta 3, but oh my god, I almost lost. But it was so smooth, and it actually felt so responsive, and I'm looking forward to the next one that unlock even more abilities. And it wiped Bayonetta. It wiped the floor with Bayonetta. Like, these summon fights compared to Bayonetta, oh my god, these are like a 10. Bayonetta's like a 3 in summon fights, I should say. I haven't played many games with summon fights, but this game did fantastic with that. And of course, minus the great fight and the great audio design, all the great stuff, and a few, negatives with the side quests. The biggest negative that I had with this game is something that you can completely ignore, and it's the auto-lock camera. The auto-lock camera, I think it's a great tool. It works very well when you're fighting one character. For me, when I'm fighting like a room full of 8 people, the auto-lock camera is just going all over the place, and I can't really keep up with it. And then I'm looking at one person trying to fight them, and then it moves to another person, and then I get hit from behind when I'm trying to dodge. The dodging in this game is also very cool, doing those dodges and then getting some quick slashes in. Love that. But the auto-lock camera feels janky, and I try not to use it unless I'm fighting one character. So yeah, that's my biggest negative, is the auto-lock camera. And overall, really, I can just say this game is a lot of fun. It's one of the best games I've played this year, despite only playing 6 hours. But I've also played a lot of crappy games this year, like Redfall and Atomic Heart. Redfall is a 3 out of 10. Atomic Heart's like a 6.5 out of 10 at its best. The combat's amazing in Final Fantasy. The cinematics are just, they're perfect. The overall progression of the game, it's just executed so well, and I'm so excited to play more of it. But I really wanted to make a quick little review on it, even though this is probably flopped a little bit. But even on performance mode on the PlayStation 5, it looks fantastic. It runs fantastic. I personally haven't had any problems with the game. Like, I have a couple things I don't like, but the game as a whole is running super smooth, and it feels very well. The biggest negative was it was 95 Canadian dollars. Which, that's the Canadian dollar for you. It really just feels like the developers have a lot of passion with this game, and I can't believe in 2023 we're praising just a non-buggy game coming out. Well, I'm praising it because it's just so many buggy games come out. These AAA games come out, and they're all just so buggy and messy, and they don't play well. The FPSs are bad, but Final Fantasy XVI, it's one of the best games I've played this year, along with Resident Evil 4 Remake, Metroid Prime Remastered, Dead Space Remake, which is weird. All the best games I've played this year have been remakes and remasters. But this is definitely one of the best games I've played this year. And if I had to give this game a rating, I would probably give this like a 9 out of 10. Like, the couple things that I've said I didn't like, the side quest being a little right now, and the lock-on camera not being the best. Everything else is so well done. This game's a 9 out of 10 for me, and I'm very excited to play more of it. Probably tomorrow whenever I'm done with this. And if you like this, make sure you like and subscribe, comment what you think about this new type of video review that I'm doing. Let me know what you think. I think it was a little messy here and there in some parts, but yeah, let me know. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.